So, if I may introduce Sean Finter, to give you an overview, Sean's journey is quite remarkable. Growing up in a small Canadian town and starting really by washing dishes at the tender age of 12. He ventured to London at 19 and eventually becoming a bar owner in Sydney, Australia at 27 years old. And over the next 5 years of his career and journey, he expanded his empire to include 8 bars and restaurants, which is truly phenomenal, before selling those businesses and founding Bar Matrix, a bar consultancy focusing on quantifiable measurements, utilizing techniques that had propelled his own success, and he's helped over 8,500 operational teams worldwide, establishing 26 offices, which is huge, in 8 countries. So Sean's expertise lies not only in his extensive experience, but also in his ability to blend personal narrative with practical solutions, which, as we all know, is far too valuable in the world that we live in today. So for the topic today, Sean will be talking you through and walking you through his transformational framework for hospitality, which has been designed to give his clients a significant competitive advantage. In this session, he will guide you through his 3-gear model, focusing on frontline staff capabilities, leadership roles in driving performance, and ownership responsibility in setting the vision. May I ask you all to put your hands together and welcome Sean to the stage.
I'm going to take you guys on a journey back to 1985 in Canada, where I grew up in a little town. Population back then was 1,920. The town has boomed since I left. We're over 2,000 now. It's really taken off, and we've got a McDonald's. So very exciting. This is very much what the town looked like then and still now. Ali and I were back there actually right before we flew here, sadly, for a funeral, but Schaumburg hasn't changed much. I don't know if you've ever had a moment where you're alone and music's on and you think that someone's talking to you through the speakers, right? Someone reached out and said something to me that changed my life. And that was these lyrics here. While you see a chance, on a cold day dawning, are you still free? Can you be? So I was only 12 years old. I had lost my first friend. He got killed in a car accident. And my life was not what I thought it would be. I experienced depression at a very young age. I didn't know what it was then. I thought I was just sad. There's quite a difference between being sad and being depressed, I learned. But I found out that bad things happen in threes. So on that year of my 12th year, was the first year they started talking about holding me back, and I was labeled with learning disabilities. And as a kid, it's devastating. I was put in a special classroom. I didn't have the special bus because we only had one bus in my town, but it was ostracized and told by people that cared about me, prepare yourself, right? You're going to be a plumber, you're going to carry lumber. Not that any of those things are bad, but if you grew up in Canada, it's 30 below in the winter. I didn't want to be running around on a job site doing that. The second thing that happened, my parents thought, well, this would be a good year to let him know that he's adopted. And talk about your whole belief structure coming down at once. Your parents say, well, we're not really your parents. They just turned out to be people that loved me very much and gave me everything, but as a 12-year-old, it's impossible to relate. And I felt like things were crashing around me. And then my hero crashed. My dad was a troubleshooter for Royal Banks. And I really think it's one of the worst jobs in the world. You go town to town, you call about 10, 12% of the loans, 20% of the people. If you're the banker, your kids get beat up, and then you move on to the next town. And you go town to town until it eventually breaks you. At least that's how it used to be. For me, these are some of the feelings that I felt hopeless and angry and ashamed, lost, scared, and humiliated. Hospitality to me is something that's very personal. I really believed in many ways it saved my life, and it gave me a life I couldn't even have dreamt of at the time. It was a very nice introduction, and in my life, even when I hear it, it doesn't even sound real. I've not graduated high school. I struggled a lot. I had anger issues, and I just decided that I wanted to change. But here's what happened. When my father stopped working, he's a sole provider for 6 people. I have 3 siblings. And your life changes, right? And we didn't want to move again. So my eldest sister decided that we would go and get jobs and contribute a little bit to help my mama so we can stay in the house while my dad recovered, which took a couple of years. So for a couple of years, we worked, we chipped in. Needless to say, we didn't go out very much. But on the second year, my mother said, we're going out tonight. It was October 31st, 1985. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I can't remember yesterday, by the way. I have a terrible memory in certain ways, but this particular day, I remember every moment of it. So I was shocked that we're going out. We're going to our favorite restaurant. It was called Ponderosa. I don't think you had them over here. I think they invented the sneeze guard and the buffets that were as long as this room, and all meats that I'd never even heard of, and vegetables, and 85 different colors of Jell-O and whipped cream at the end of it. It was paradise. And so when my mom said we were going there, I couldn't believe it. It was my father's birthday and my sister's birthday, both on Halloween. So I remember getting in the car. It occurred to me that I hadn't seen my dad outside in months. So seeing your dad like outside, and we were all getting in this 5-seater car, which seems weird now. The 6 of us got into this little car. And we drove to Newmarket, which is 20 minutes away, in absolute silence. And I remember like trying to identify how I was feeling. And it was the first time I really recognized that this is pure anxiety, right? Because I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know if we were going to have enough money to cover the bill, and I know that would bring great shame to us. I didn't know if my dad was going to be able to handle. He had not been outside for 18 months. And we got out of the car. One of my sisters was tearing up a little bit because she's like, we don't have to go here. We can go to McDonald's or something. My mom says, this is where we're having dinner. And we walked inside. And I remember every crease in the woman's face at the door. She was around 50 years old. And she welcomed us, the host, at this little fast casual restaurant. And before she even finished saying hello, a manager and a colleague, it was pretty early, it was around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, came over to us. And suddenly, like, we were surrounded, and in a very beautiful way. And I remember the host coming up from behind the counter, kind of walked past my mom, and looked at my dad, and put her hand on his shoulder. And my dad took half a step back, but then he stood up, and his spine was fully erect for the first time in 2 years, right? I realized my hero had not stood up fully for 2 years. He was hunched over, he was sad, he was moving slowly. And suddenly, like, I see him back for a second at least, and the woman putting her hand on his shoulder changed the whole dynamics of our family in that moment. And I didn't know what was going to happen. We walked over the table, we all sat down, and this team kind of took over. Now, I watched them, and I knew they knew that we were sick, not just my dad, but the whole family. When a family member's sick, the whole family gets sick with them. So just watching this orchestration, one of the servers, because they weren't busy, she helped out, went over the kids, went down on one knee, and said, hey, kind of walked us through the menu, the buffet, the kids' menu, asked my mom, is it okay if they have some soda, right? It's all she needed clearance, and then she dealt with us. And I tell you, as kids, when someone gives you that power and control and respect, it's a big deal. And they managed my parents very differently. And at one point, halfway through the meal, something happened that changed my life. The manager came over to my dad. Second time he touched him, put his hand on his shoulder briefly, and said some corny joke, and my dad laughed. And I realized I hadn't heard anybody in our family laugh for a long time. We stayed in that restaurant as long as we could. No one wanted to leave. When we finally got in the car, we started driving home, and no one was talking, and I blurted out, that's what I want to do. And my mom said, you want to work in a restaurant? I said, maybe. She said, well, what do you mean? I said, I want to do what they did here today. And she said, what does that mean? I said, those people helped us. They saw us in need, they took care of us, and everyone knew what I meant, right? And for me, hospitality very much means how a person feels about themselves while they're in your company. A stranger walks in off the street, and you have an opportunity to meet them where they are and maybe take them a level or two up, right? It's a beautiful gift that we get to give people on a regular basis. The emotions that I felt driving home, I felt hope for the first time in a long time. I felt happiness. I was truly happy in the moment. I was scared that it was going to end, and I started to dream again. I knew we were going to get out of where we were at because of those 3 people at the restaurant who took care of us. So I believe that's our opportunity. What followed from there was a 39-year study. So my interest in our industry is that emotional connection and that opportunity to take people to the next level. Create this container in which we can drink the world's best products, we can enjoy design, we can eat beautiful food, we can listen to the best music, but without the container, nothing else really happens. We talked yesterday about seeing the Master Cooper making those barrels. If you have a leaky barrel, right, it doesn't matter what you put inside of it, it's going to leak out. No one's going to remember it. So I want to talk to you guys today about something, a simple idea that's quite complex in its setup and structure, But I'm going to give you guys a model that I've created that works, that has worked for so many. But being here at Jameson, first let's drink. We've got a drink coming around. It looks a little different than what I'm going to have on the screen here. Has anyone had the Emerald before? Anybody? A few of us? Okay. So the Emerald, a couple of years ago, I have no concept of time except 1985. Was it last year or 2 years? 2 years ago. I'm sure many of you know Jack McGarry from Dead Rabbit. Yeah? So Jack's one of the people that I coach, and Jack got married 2 years ago in Belfast, and Ali and I went to the wedding. The day of the wedding, imagine that, like most beautiful countryside wedding. And we went back to where Jack and Sean used to work, in which I consider, I get asked in interviews all the time, like, what's the most beautiful room? What's the coolest place? I really think this is one of the most impressive rooms in the world that I've ever been in. You walk in it, if it was closed and you're in there by yourself with no music on, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning, this room at the Merchant Hotel. So we're sitting at the bar. We just finished the wedding. There's Jack's dad. And we're sitting at the bar at the Merchant Hotel, and the bartender says, now it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And the bartender says, what would you like to drink? And I said, it's first time in Belfast in a long time, Ali's first time there. I said, what do you recommend? And he said, the Emerald. And he made this drink in front of me, and he said, I got to admit, I'm nervous. And I thought, wow, I'm a big deal over here. He said, no, you're with Jack and Sean. So it wasn't me making him nervous. And he makes this beautiful drink, which you're going to have here. And I said, wow, this is beautiful. I said, did you come up with this recipe? He puts his hand on my hand. He says, no, sir, this drink's over 100 years old. He said, I hope I don't look that bad. He was only like 30 years old. So that's the Emerald. And I tell you, Jack's the best guy to go out drinking with. This is what I do with Jack. We go to different cities around the world. He orders the entire menu. Recovering alcoholic. He takes a sip and spits it, and I drink the rest of the drinks. We have a great relationship. So that's the Emerald. So you know my name. You got it? Two words that fit really nicely together. Hospitality, I just described what it means to me, and I think it's important that you all have your own meaning, because there's lots of different brands of hospitality, right? I used to own 8 bars and restaurants. We had 8 different brands. I wouldn't recommend that, but we did. Some of our guests loved 3 properties. They didn't like the other 5. Some of my staff loved the one they worked at. They didn't want to work at the other 7, right? Hospitality is very personal. It's very unique, very hard to do. So I got lucky early on. I worked for a hospitality outlier in a town of 2,000 people. I worked at a truck stop when I was 12 to help the family out. The guy who owned it, in small town Canada, they kind of rated the towns back then by how many Cadillacs a town has. My town had 2 Cadillacs. Mr. Panu's Cadillac, my boss, and Mrs. Panu's Cadillac, right? Truck stop owners with a hobby farm. It was unheard of where I'm from. So I worked for them. I then went on to manage outlier bars. I went to London. I applied at about 8 or 9 places, sent dozens and dozens of letters, told them I'd work for free. I knew who I wanted to work for and why. I wanted to work for people that treated people right and outperformed the market by multiples, right? You can see them. They're in your city. You know who they are. They're very rare, but I wanted to work for them, and I did for a number of years. I became a hospitality outlier. I bought 7 businesses at a bankruptcy for $1 each, and I bought another one I paid way too much money for, started at 0. In 5 years, we took a company from $0 to $32 million a year. My goal then, I was young. I started at 26. I sold the group at 32. My business plan was one word, more, right? All I wanted was more. I didn't know any better. And more nearly killed me, by the way. Just a side note on that. I put on 90 pounds. I was a lunatic. I worked 100 hours a week, thought it was a badge of honor, right? It's a death sentence to work like that. Ground my relationships in the ground. Wonderful story. People like to talk about the success, and I sold the group for a great multiple. But I sold it because my doctor said, I think you do the next 5 years like the last and you'll be dead. Pretty sobering words when you're 31 years old. I sold, I became, and I now coach outliers. I do love coaching, not so much to help people make more money. That's a great byproduct. But my therapist says I'm trying to go back and rescue my 12-year-old self. Right? I want to help people create environments where 12-year-olds or 22-year-olds or 52-year-olds can find themselves and become somebody. The school system just wasn't for me, it turns out, but I learned an awful lot working for kind and generous people. Yeah, if I had a resume, that's kind of how it looks. I did a few years of working almost exclusively with public companies. I enjoyed the challenge, and I'm proud of the work that I did. Being in windowless boardrooms wasn't for me. Being in random cities for meetings I didn't feel I needed to be in. Wasn't for me. It was the first time I ever felt like I had a real job, and I don't recommend it. I wrote a book that never got published, but we took it to 55 countries around the world. I'm the modern-day Forrest Gump. I don't know how some of these things have happened, but it's cool. So today, I sold Barmetrics about a year and a half ago. After 21 years, I started it on my kitchen table in Sydney. And now it's just Ali and I and contract help when we bring it in, and it's cool not to have hundreds of staff and office openings and all this stuff that I love business, but the business kind of outgrew me. So now I just coach. We talked about that, and we talked about that. So these are just a few of the clients that I coach and projects that I work on. Try to kind of create outliers. So a lot of these, in fact, most of these do things that are mind-boggling. I set up this project in Miami years ago and consulted on it. They have a space the size of this room that does $1 million a week US. They do around $55, $60 million a year in that one little space, and then we have 14 other spaces that we created. So we try to create outliers. Sweet Liberty, maybe some of you remember John Lemaire was a good friend of mine, and we wanted to create something that would create a stage for people like us, misfits, to prove ourselves and to work hard and to continually learn. So what I want to share with you is the new book that I'm writing. Hopefully this one will get published rather than just go to video. I went right to, a movie goes right out of the theaters, right into video. But I've been spending time in the last 5 or 6 years really trying to help my clients decode this formula, right? To multiply our chances of delivering consistent, remarkable hospitality, right? And it wasn't until I really broke it down it wasn't until, anyone know who this guy is? Nobody? This is Tony in 3 years if he keeps up his pace, okay? I used AI to generate Tony 3 years from now, and this is what it came up with. Now, this is a genius, someone I've looked up to for years. You might recognize him now beside his business partner, Warren Buffett. These two run a firm called Berkshire Hathaway. Charlie Munger is the young gentleman over here. Charlie sadly just died not long ago, 6 months ago, right before his 100th birthday. And Charlie is the analyst in Berkshire Hathaway, so he looks at deals. And Charlie has one of the simplest ways of looking at things that I think all schools should be teaching. And I'll give it to you guys today, and I hope you use it in your own business. So Charlie's thing is inversion thinking, right? Everyone's trying to figure out how to win in business. How do we do this better, faster? How do we make more money? How do we make people happier? Charlie looks at a business and says, how can we be guaranteed to fuck this up, right? What would we have to do? So let's think about a relationship. What would you have to do to guarantee that a relationship would end with your partner? Cheating? Okay, what else? Drinking straight from the milk carton. There's a guy 3 times divorced. His exes call him lactose intolerant, or they were intolerant of his lactose habits. All right, I like that. Yeah, so you guys get it, right? Like, if you think about hospitality, what could possibly get in the way of that happening? This complex things happening. So that's what Charlie's good at. He identifies 3 to 5 things. If he figures it's too difficult or too costly to solve, they pass on the business. Unfortunately for us, we can't pass on the business because this is what we do, so we've got to figure out how to solve for these things. So, question, what is hospitality? If you were to tell a 19-year-old that's coming on to work for you, never worked in the industry, how would you describe it? How you make people feel. Okay, these are all right answers, right? So, service, attention, all these things, right? The complexity of hospitality is that, if I was going to sit down with a 19-year-old and say, okay, I want to help you understand how the industry works. If we take a shot of Jameson, right? It's in a glass. 1/3 of that, if you're in a retail space, my brain thinks, shit, this costs something, right? This did not look like this before they renovated this piece, put in electronics and everything else. Someone's got to pay for that, and it's the people consuming. And they also understand the next third is a product, right? Someone made this, they put it here, they put it in this vessel, they put the drink together for us. But the final third is hospitality, right? Because we can get the other 2 things at home. I have a nice living room, and I have a bottle of Jameson's at home, right? The final third, though, is for the feeling that we get, the community that we might get to be a part of while we're there. So it's a subconscious feeling. And again, I think it's how someone feels about themselves, right? Service is something I can do to somebody. Hospitality is something I do with somebody, right? I can serve you and be almost invisible. Last night, the staff were darting in and around. They were serving us. Hospitality is a human connection. We talk about B2B and C2C. It's H to H, right? Human to human, connecting. Me seeing you and trying to take you to another level, all right? That's what we're trying to do. I think a big part of my hospitality concepts have been about gratitude, right? If you can get people talking about what they're grateful for, and you go first, you lead when it's appropriate, and you lead. There's an acronym that I like, FORD, F-O-R-D, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. You can get people talking about one of those four things, and you're suddenly involved in a real level 3 conversation, right? That's real. The first reason was that it's intangible, right? That's what makes it difficult. That's why banks don't back hospitality businesses. When I had this grand success in Sydney, I had one property going, making great money, more money than I ever knew what to do with. I went to the bank and said, all right, I want to do more of these. And the bank said, oh, we don't loan to bars and restaurants. I said, why not? Look at my books, look at my balance sheet. They said, Sean, let me explain this to you. You don't know when your customers are coming. You don't know who's going to open across the street. You don't control the weather. And your business model is hiring young people, paying them minimum wage, giving them minimal training, asking them to work opposite hours of their family and friends, and then you intoxicate your customers. And then make it a bit more challenging, you're going to turn the lights down and the music up. He said, do you understand why we don't loan to bars and restaurants? I said, I got it, thanks. I'll sell fun from here. So that's what we did. So that intangible feeling makes it very difficult. I have worked with thousands of staff around the world. The second complexity is that most businesses fail to coach staff on how to win at hospitality. So how do you win? How do we win at hospitality? What's the deciding factor? Happiness of the guest, okay? They come back. That's how you win, right? You win by getting a repeat visit, and then another visit, and another visit, right? It's very, very difficult to do, given no contracts and hundreds of options, right? Netflix and a bottle of wine is an option against you, right? That's how they're going to spend their time and money. They don't need to be with you. So we use a litmus test when I start working with new clients, and I ask them, how do you articulate your hospitality strategy? But better, I ask their staff, I say, can I talk to 5 people who have been with you for a year or longer in the front of house? And then I ask them, I said, how do you win? And amazingly, they all give me totally different answers. And not often is it the right answer. Great drinks, all of that stuff. Yeah, customers do expect that. They expect you to have pants on when they come in. They expect the ceiling not to fall in on them. They expect a lot of things, but that's not how you win. That's not how you come back. So this is the original napkin I drew years ago. This is how I see running a bar or restaurant. And we'll focus on bartenders today, but everyone out front has a part to play. So I say to bartenders, I said, first off, the number one thing that we do here is meet a human where they're at and try to determine, I'm going to give you the tools to determine how to make that person happy, how to create a memorable experience that they will walk out. Remarkable hospitality means that it's worthy of comment weeks after the experience. And I said, we're going to take a shot every day with every guest to do that. And I said, once we get that in play, number 2, I've always run for-profit businesses. I volunteered a nonprofit, but I have 4 kids that got used to sleeping inside, having a fridge full of food, so I wanted to make some money. And I said, I'm going to teach you how to sell with dignity, right? And I think that great salesmanship is being a wonderful steward of the guest experience, right? You're just guiding them. And you'll notice I didn't say maximum amount of money, right? I hate being hard-pressed, upsold the shit that I don't want. I want to buy what I want to buy, but I want availability to your knowledge and what you have here, and take me on a journey. If I express interest in Irish whiskey, meet me where I am, and take me somewhere that's going to impress me. And number 3 is provide a reason to return, right? Every single guest, every time. If they're in your company for an hour, watch what they love, watch what they do. Providing a reason to return, word of mouth for future customers. What we're trying to do is convert a drop-in into a regular, and then convert a regular into a raving fan. You guys know what I mean by raving fan? You have those folks that come into the bar that annoy the shit out of you sometimes, right? Their colleagues are being dragged in that even want to come across town. right? And they've heard all about the place. They want to meet you and all of that. And you know, someone pulls you aside and says, "Does this lunatic have shares in this place? Like, he must be one of the owners here," right? That's a raving fan. I learned to love those people. And I learned that if you get 500 of them in any city in the world, you win. They just create this ripple effect that you absolutely win. So if you think about it this way, those should be 1, 2, 3. Hospitality is number 1. Sales is number 2. Marketing is number 3, right? That's what I ask all front of house staff to do. Most bartenders that I meet and say, what are you charged with doing here? Making great cocktails. Okay, awesome. You know, showing the guests a good time. Okay, awesome, right? But are you charged with taking a human to another level, creating an experience that they can't get many other places, and helping them find their tribe within our business, if they'd like that, right? Future events to connect them to. Number 3, most businesses fail to measure what's most important, right? And what's most important is, are we connecting with our target audience and giving them a measurement against that? I'm going to give you guys something today that I did not have when I was an operator. This book came out after I was an operator, but the theory around it is that you can't improve what you can't measure. You can't improve hospitality for your core constituencies unless you truly understand where you're at. Has anyone ever used a Net Promoter Score before in their business? Okay, a few businesses. So this, I think, is one of the most powerful tools, the perfect tool for your business in hospitality. It comes from Frank Reichheld's book, The Ultimate Question. And the question is quite simply a one-question survey. Fred used to work for a Gallup organization, which is about 30 miles from my house. I spent a lot of time with the folks there. He was one of their top research experts, and his average survey at the time was 32 questions. He said, what if I could ask one question and get 80% of the information? This is what geeks dream about. I don't know what you guys think about at night, but I think that's pretty sexy. Well, this is the question. This is it. Look how simple it is, right? You ask a guest when they're leaving, or shortly after they've left, how likely are you to recommend us to friends and family? How could that question be so powerful? Think about it this way. He's tapping into your subconscious to ask you something. He's saying, how likely are you, it's all on you now, to recommend us in what you just had to the people you care most about on a scale of 1 to 10? And here's what they found out. People that rate you from 1 to 6 are detractors of your business. Meaning at the office a week later, they say, hey, I'm going to go to ABC Bar, and they go, I was just there. There's a better place just across the street, and if you like this, try this one over here. They steer people away from you. 6 out of 10 in school, by the way, I would have fucking loved, right? That would have been a 5 would have been good. 7s and 8s. Sevens and 8s are passive. You had a deal. They walked in off the street. You had a chair, food, a drink, some lighting and music. At the end of it, you gave them a bill. The contract's over, right? I got what I paid for. Now I'm looking for something better, something different, something remarkable next time. I won't be back here. Not because I'm angry, but because you're a commodity. Only 9s and 10s are promoters of your business, right? So if you start asking the right questions and getting the data, the one recommendation that Fred makes is to not complicate the survey with too many questions. 1 is wonderful. The second question is, and the only other question he recommends you tack on if you want a second, is what was the number 1 reason for your rating? So if you have your target constituency, and they rate you a 9 or 10, and you ask them why, they'll tell you why. If you ask your target constituent, they rate you 1 to 6, and you ask them why, they're going to tell you why. And I know a lot of people want to get into consulting. I'm going to give you the whole bag here. You ready? You get your clients to do more of the shit that people like and less of the shit they don't like, right? That's consulting in a bag, right? And you just ask them, what did you like? And they tell you, I'm a promoter. Here's what I liked. Here's why I'm promoting. I'm a detractor. Here's what I don't like, and here's why I'm telling people to stay away from you. And then, of course, you have the outliers. It's supposed to be an 11, and the outlier is that lunatic that you love. Get 500 of them, and you're on your way. The 4th of 5 reasons why hospitality would almost be guaranteed to fail is that you fail to develop people over time. So our industry is famous for either throwing people in the deep end, right? Who, by the way, likes to be thrown in the deep end? A few? Okay. There's always a few crazy ones in the room. Most people don't, right? I worked for a guy for a short time in London, multi-million-pound business in London. He's like, well, you've done this before. Here are the keys, and like, I got to get to my other property. And I was in the deep end. and it was one of the most difficult, and I felt like I failed everybody there, and I did fail a lot of people there. So I like a little more structure. But developing people over time, or not thinking you got it all in the induction program, right? The education, vaccination. Yep, you're trained, you're off. So we set up programs for businesses that are structured, that help them understand all the important things about our company, our guests, how we do business, our service philosophy, our hospitality philosophy, and so on and so forth. We do this in a passport fashion. We do it digitally with a lot of programming, and in a passport fashion because I believe every business has 8 or 10 things that make it unique. And if you can help your new team understand those things, put it in a passport, tell them who the mentors in your business are, spread the training out across the team, and then have those people help them understand and master those skills. Once you've got it or you've demonstrated the capability, they sign off and you move on. And you set a set amount of time, you schedule appropriately, and you could leverage your team to do things that wouldn't seem possible. By the way, anything I'm talking about today, we give away everything that we have. We have nothing for sale to you guys today. And I really want all of the systems that I've been building over the last 20 years. So if you hear something, you're going to see our emails at the end. And trust me when I tell you, I want to give it to you. And there's no follow-up to sell you something. I just want more people to work in a better environment to get a better outcome. And then we build our programs into 3-year blocks. So I had a bar group, we only had it for less than 6 years. Most of the staff, of our first 100 staff, 80 of them were with us when we sold it, right? They stayed with us for 6 years. And you can do that if you have a 3-year or a 5-year or 6-year plan. Most businesses have a 1-year plan for their staff. Get them inducted, get them some experience, leave them alone, then they want to go somewhere else to keep learning or have something new. You got to be the new thing, you got to be the learning thing if you want to keep people a long time. The final piece of this, you guys have probably heard the stats, right? 80% of bars and restaurants fail within 5 years. But 70% of small businesses fail, right? This isn't uncommon. It's difficult to run a business. But when I saw that only 15% of franchises fail, that got my attention. I actually became a franchisor around this time, and we did offices all over the world. So the first principle here is the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. I meet people all the time that have had their bar for 12 years, they want to sell it, and they find out it's worth nothing. Once you take the person out, it's just a bunch of walls and all the IP and all the systems go with them, right? So you really want to be documenting your business. When I started doing this back in Sydney, one of my mentors said to me, he said, do you own a business or do you own your job? I said, I own a business. He goes, really? He said, what would happen if you went away for 3 months and only made yourself available to the team half an hour a week to answer some emergency stuff? I said, we'd probably be out of business. He said, well, then you own your job. So I prepared my business, put it in a box, and then that summer I took 3 months off, right? So that's how you know you own something. That's how you can scale or live a life or whatever it is that you want to do. So when we look at the documented side of this, and this is where you could say, oh, this gets boring, but it really empowers people. You can do things in your business that weren't possible before. I know this is a lot to look at, and this is what I'm going to give you guys, and I'm going to do a follow-up like video or a call for you guys that are interested in going deeper. Here's what I think the big problem is. We look at frontline staff. Sometimes they get too much credit, but they always get too much blame when things don't go wrong, right? They've been thrown in the deep end. They haven't been evolved. They haven't been educated. So I look at business this way. We have operators here doing their thing. We have the leader on duty here, right? I think in our industry, the person that leads your shift is the most underrated, underestimated person in the business. You think about horse racing, right? What if we hired a jockey who just came out 100 pounds overweight, smoking a cigarette, half drunk, right? Gets on a multi-million-dollar horse. How do you think the race would go? It'd be a disaster, right? It's the same thing when you have a leader in your business who's running the shift who just does not engage the team. So I'm going to come back to this and show you how this all integrates. But think about it this way. The ownership provides the intention, right? Leader on duty manages the energy of the shift and the capabilities of the team, and the frontline staff are responsible for the execution. I think we're asking the frontline staff to understand our intention, to manage their own energy, and then we're disappointed with the results. So I'll show you how to do it differently and show you how to kind of integrate this into your business. So I wanted to give you one example today. And we'll just look at the ops side of the business, the hospitality side of the business. So in the ops side of our company here, the ownership of the business or at least if you're a bigger company, the senior management of the business has to take responsibility for a few things. One, setting the values and standards and describing what the mission is, right? Part of my mission in business in Sydney was to be the hub of our community in every community that we were in. And that wasn't just a slogan, right? We loaned our space out to anyone in the community. You know, my restaurants were closed during the day and said, hey, this is your free boardroom. Come in here. You want coffee and tea? We'll get it from across the road, and we're going to help you guys out. Charities could do that with us. When we had families grieving, we had private rooms that they could use. We wanted to get businesses together to talk about their business. And I bring experts in and invite everyone in my community. All of these things made me feel good, and I think they were the right thing to do. It turns out it was also really fucking good for business, right? Anyone in my community, you'd walk in and say, where should I get a drink or a bite to eat? You know, it was us that they recommended because we were always trying to be helpful. I think a lot of bars and restaurants need to get serious about how they select individuals for their business. We get lazy and hire people with experience because we don't have an induction program or we want this to be quick. Our business, we hired mostly people without experience in the business because we had an amazing program and we could bring them up. They had great loyalty, great connection to the business. And then we developed playbooks. So the biggest complexity of the industry is, in quick service, if I worked at McDonald's and I'm friendly and I'm fast and I get you your food, I win every time with every guest. No one expects anything more. In bars and restaurants, people want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be engaged. They want to go on a journey, right? And what I deliver to one person could be totally different than the table beside me. They need something different. They need something different again. We ask a lot out of young people who haven't been trained to do this. The leader on duty, you know, they've got responsibilities. I was always trained, you got to get people to start strong. Like if your pre-shift isn't inspiring, 3 or 4 minutes, you get everyone connected. And then your post-shift, right? What worked, what didn't work? What 1% maneuver could we offer to the business to make it a little bit better next time? And winning the shift meant hitting your numbers, right? Fielding an excellent team, knowing being a proactive business. And our numbers weren't just about higher revenue. They were about getting behind brands that we were proud of, getting behind plates of food that we thought were special and unique. It was about getting people connected to future events because we wanted them to be part of our community. We wanted them to feel like they were one of us. And then with the staff, you know, this formula up top, when I started to think about how to train people who, I've got to find the right words to say this because it's no disrespect to anyone, but every generation's different, right? And my kids grew up with way too much screen time. But we made sure to turn it off for hours a day so that we can mature them emotionally, right? A lot of kids didn't have parents that cut that off, so they're not, ready to engage a 42-year-old and take them to a new level. So with us, we'd say, I'd walk with a new bartender at the door, and there'd be a couple coming in, and I'd say, how do you rate their energy? And they'd say, 4 out of 6. I'd say, okay, why? And they go, you know what, 6. I'd say, yeah, I think they're around a 6. I'd say, now we're going to walk up to them, we're going to meet them where we're at, we're going to mirror their energy and look to take them up a level. Right? Couple in behind just comes from a funeral. 1 out of 10. Meet them where they're at and take them up a level. Right? This is a beautiful skill that you watch a bartender. I've seen a couple. There was a guy in Dublin, went from person to person. He's like a chameleon. He was a different person for everyone there. It's incredible to see when you see it, if you can recognize it. And the opposite is someone that's just the same with everyone. You're going to impress 20% of the market. You're going to lose 60%. You're going to disappoint 20%. Right? So teaching people, this is all part of the programming that we set up for the staff to help them through this. And then you've got your playbooks inside of there. So we're going to take some questions in a minute. And when I say playbooks for each of these things here, and again, I'm going to give you guys these, and if any of it's useful to you, take it and use it. But there's 24 aspects to delivering on hospitality. It is not easy to do, but it's simple to do. Right? If you follow the process and set up each and every piece. Remember I said earlier, operations, hospitality, sales is about influence, and marketing is about connecting to something different. I know this is really hard to see, so we're going to send this out as well. But this is how I would start to map out hospitality with a client. On this axis here, we have experience, right? So if I'm greeting 3 different parties at the front door, we would have maybe someone who's come in for the first time. We've got someone who comes in occasionally, and then we've got a regular or one of our raving fans, right? These are 3 different greetings, 3 different experiences at the bar, 3 different experiences in the restaurant. Your raving fan does not need to know what you're known for. They made you known for that, all right? So they've been coming there longer than your server has. So you want to meet them where they're at. So for an example, my restaurants that had a host, the host would come over, they would talk to you, ask you some questions, diagnose, and find out you were with us for the first time. Awesome. They grabbed the wine list. There was 3 different wine lists they could choose from. My original property had the fleur-de-lis was our logo. So the fleur-de-lis would be white in the top right-hand corner. That meant they're brand new to the business. Next table comes in. They're kind of an intermediate guest. They've been there a few times before. That's the silver fleur-de-lis, and then we have the black. So when you take them to the table and sit them down, the server, or you sit them at the bar first perhaps, the bartender sees that signal and starts from there. Welcome back, instead of really nice to meet you, right? 2 very different greetings. Again, with the experienced user, you want to show them something new, different, interesting. With somebody brand new, you want what's hot. You know what people love when they come in here. And the person in between, that middle experience for them. When they go to the table, it gets picked up from there. The leader on duty walks by and sees this is someone brand new to the business. He or she has a playbook. They walk over. Hey, I heard you guys are new here. It's great to meet you. I'm Sean. You know, you have a quick chat with them. And then when you're leaving, they circle back with that reason to return, right? When it's appropriate. All of this stuff plugs in as it goes. On this axis here, we're trying to connect people in the tense, past tense, present, or future. Past tense would be someone asks about the business, and who owns this place? We talk about the origin story, right? Or the building's really cool. Yeah, this building was built in 1870, but it got renovated, and then when we took it over 4 years ago, we did this, this, and this, right? We're talking about the past, why it matters, why we're here. The present is what we have on offer for them today. And then the future, they've identified they like Irish whiskey. We happen to have a whiskey club. And now, as a leader or as a server, I can invite somebody into that. I can say, if you scan here, we don't spam. We just would really love to connect you to our whiskey program. And it's normally, when we have tastings, it's normally $50. The first one's on us if you want to come and check it out. I'd love to see you there, right? And then inside of here, these are all the playbooks that happen here. So on the connection, on the marketing side, I could be connecting them to the city, to the team, to the brand, to the tribe, right? These are all individual playbooks. What's really important is what you can't see here, the hidden piece here. We set all this up in a 101, a 201, and a 301, right? The induction is just like what you can absorb right now and where you can start to get comfortable with this. The 201 usually starts at the 6-month point, so you go back into learning and back into execution with mentors. And then at the end of 12 months with us, you start on 301, and you split off. Usually, we prescribe to clients that you start to train a second position. Just gives variety, allows you movability on a shift. You know, a bartender called in sick, a server's trained in this. We're quieter in the restaurant, we can put someone on. Bartender to bar back, whatever it might be. So this is kind of the schematic that we use around developing this with clients. That's the toolbox, and this is the playbook. Make sense? So I know there's a lot there. We've only got a few minutes, so I do want to take a few questions, and then I'm going to send whoever wants the resources for today, I'm going to send you that, and I'm going to invite you onto kind of a deep dive call that we always do after these if people want to attend and come on with your team, and then I answer as many questions. But we can answer a few quick questions now. What do we got? This is a participation part here. Right here.
I know this is a big question, but when you spoke about, sorry, I actually wrote it down, about preparing your business for you not being there, if you could sum that up in like a minute, how would you do that?
This is it.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you the step-by-step on how to do this.
Okay.
Right? So if any of you go through this exercise, you could rough it out in like 8 weeks. And with the new tools, like we're using AI tools now, I could, for example, on our sales programs, right? Teaching staff how to diagnose, all of that. I could talk to my team about it, have it recording, rip the audio, put it into ChatGPT and say, put this into a script for me. Then I touch it up, and then we run it through Synthesia, which is an AI avatar, looks like a human talking, so you don't have to worry about stumbling on camera and all that, and then you can adjust it as you go, and he or she can change. You can document your business now in 8 weeks, and we'll show you how to do that with your team, and it's best with your team. You get a captain in every department, and they get contributors and they put in, I'll give it to you step by step on how to break it down. Tony?
Do you include any kind of reward or incentive as part of their progression and their development?
Yeah, so Tony's question was, do you provide incentive or reward to staff to contribute? So here's what I think, guys. We all reserve the right to make changes and write a new chapter or even write a new book. When I used to take over businesses, I'd say to them, listen, people thought of me like as a grim reaper, right? If I showed up in your bar, usually because you're fucking going under and I'm going to take it over. But I'd say to them, I'm inviting you all to stay, but I'd say, here's how we run business, right? And we're an organization that learns and grows, that challenges each other. But I said, there's a lot of work to be done. And if that doesn't appeal to anyone, I totally get it. But the work is part of the work, right? Leaning on the counter, hanging out, smoking, doing all that, this doesn't work for me. You can have your break and do whatever you want. And I get them to come on, and I said, what I'll do for you is I'm going to document the whole journey, and I'll document your contribution. You want to captain a team, whatever else. And when you leave, I will be your advocate. I'm going to give you experience that you wouldn't otherwise get. I did mention, I'll grab you 1 second. I didn't mention earlier that the 12-year-old, one of the auxiliary duties he insisted that we all do was mastering a universal skill. And I thought to the guy, fuck, dude, I'm 12 years old, right? My whole world's falling apart. I'm already washing your dishes. Master a universal skill. That's a big ask of a dishwasher, I thought. You don't want it, you don't work with us. That's what you're going to do. So what that meant for me, 4 o'clock wake up on Sunday mornings to go and stock take. Back then it was paper and pen and the bottles and the food and everything else. Well, think about that. I've not graduated high school. I went on to form the largest inventory control company, private inventory control company in our industry, right? Offices all over the world, mastering a skill that I did not even want to learn. But did I like doing it once I got in? After a year, I was really fucking good at it. I was 13, really good at it. And then before I can read, because I have terrible dyslexia, before I could even read, he taught me how to read a P&L and a balance sheet. And he'd come in, his suppliers would come in, he'd say, hey, Sean, have a look at this with me and walk this guy through this. I got to grab something and come back. This is what leadership is about, right? Seeing in someone more than they see in themselves. And I love that images of a candle lighting a candle because it doesn't take anything away from the original candle. To light somebody up and say, I see you, I want to help you, and I want you to step into your opportunity. You had a question there?
Yeah, actually I have a question regards training and playbook.
Yeah.
How would you adapt the playbook, training, and all that you said here, like for businesses, especially here in Ireland, like we have a lot of bars and pubs that after a while or after a certain time becomes nightclubs or something like this.
Yeah.
Or even for event companies. Like how would you practice like everything that you said for these types of businesses? Because like it's a bit hard for you to develop all these playbooks and develop all the hospitality that we search for when you have like a customer that comes for lunch, but after 10 o'clock it becomes like a nightclub, crowded or even busier,
Yeah. So here's my recommendation. I go into organizations that have tons of documentation on the process. It's mostly bullshit that no one's ever going to read. Even the author didn't read it. They photocopied it from somewhere or copied it, So, if we start there and take the material and say, what really matters to this business? What really matters to the humans that work here? They're going to deliver it. And you're going to find out that if you have a good set of documentation, that 10% of it is valuable. And then we want to build out on that. I have 4 kids, 3 are of working age. All 3 of working age work in our industry. One of them at one of the worst fucking restaurants I've ever seen in my life. It's good for her, right? It's good to see what bad leadership's all about and disorganized and everything else, so she'll appreciate a good job. So they all work in the industry, and why is that? I believe these are 3 of the most important skills that human could ever learn, right? Number 1 is how to engage another human. Ali will tell you, I've never been in an elevator, at a restaurant, staff, I meet everybody. I talk to them, I find out something about them because it makes me happy. It turns out it makes them happy too when someone's genuinely interested. Number 2, selling, right? Selling with dignity. Selling is just saying, hey, I know what we have, and I'm hopefully going to find out what you're interested in, and I'm going to match you up with that. And then thirdly, marketing is a continuous relationship, right? So I say, if you want to write the next Hollywood script, you need all 3 of these skills. If you're single and you want to get married and convince someone that of the 4 billion opportunities you have with other people, I'm the best fucking option, you need to be able to make them smile, encourage them, sell them on the idea that you're the right person, and then on a continuous relationship, right? So that's where I'd start with all the material, and then everything else just bolts onto there. What you must have, but make it so that, you know, this will be valuable to this person 10 years from now, 40 years from now. Guys, I want to thank you. Like I said, you can keep in touch. I went way back. Only one of these emails will get a response. I'll let you guess which one. And Ali, you should put your number on. You should put your phone number on so people can call you. Don't worry about the time difference. Because she hardly ever sleeps. You know, you can call her anytime. But yeah, if anything appeals to you, let us know, and we'd love to continue the conversation. So thank you very much.